Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, Voice Tracking for Your Summer. My name's Danny. I'm from the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia. Thanks to our friends from the Community Media Training Organisation who are providing valuable support for today's session. Before we get started, this webinar is coming to you from Gadigal land. So as such, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which it's broadcasting, and the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, paying respects to elders past and present. Thanks very much for your early arrival for today's sessions. This is the final webinar for our 2020 series of webinars. We've had quite a few this year, more than 20 webinars that we've run, a lot of them in reaction to COVID-19. So thanks to all of my colleagues here at the CBAA and the CMTO for all their assistance to put together a wonderful series of webinars. And we hope that everyone out there in the sector has found them informative and maybe even a little bit entertaining. And after everything that 2020 has thrown at you, you deserve a break. That's why today's webinar will look at pre-recorded content management for when you're away from your station with the holidays. They're just around the corner, and stations are starting to plan how to maintain quality programming over the festive season. Today we're going to look at software and content, how to file your information, what to look for in scripts to make you sound live, and so much more. Big thanks to our presenters today. Peter Gill, who's just informed me, well, he did have in his bio that he's been actively involved in radio for over 40 years, quite a bit over 40 years, 53 and counting. That includes DJing, producing, programming, production, everything. His extensive experience covers training and mentoring. He's currently at Cairns FM 89.1 in Cairns. So we thank him for contributing to today's session. Also, Warren Barnett, hailing from Highland FM in Bowral, New South Wales. He has over 30 years broadcasting experience in community radio and 50 years in the Australian record industry as a mastering engineer. He's the presenter of the Platters That Matter show there on Highland FM, and he was also a winner of the Outstanding Volunteer Contribution at the 2020 CBAA Community Radio Awards. And so without further ado, I will pass it over to both Peter and Warren and let you get things started for today's session. Now, I believe, Peter, you'll be going first, so I'll just stop sharing my screen and allow you to do so. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, it is.
All right, I'll let you take over control of the screen then, sir.
And I'd share the screen while other participants there, so how do I get around that one?
What's that, sorry, mate?
It was saying I couldn't share the screen while somebody else was using it. So.
Okay, that was because I was using it, I'd say. Hopefully now that I've taken it down, you should be good to go.
Okay, let's just hit this then. Hopefully this will come across on here, so it's fine. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to thank a few people who have given me a lot of hand over the last few days. Peter Ricketts, who I know is on the line, he's the manager at Cairns FM 89.1, and he supplied me with some material because I've moved from one station to another. I don't have a big backlog now of promotions and sweepers and other material. Ross at Station Playlist, he's the one who used to supply the material for me at Coast FM, and he's given us a copy to work with today, and we hope working in the future that will be people will be able to log into that until the end of December from wherever you are, whether it be Sydney or Melbourne, doesn't matter, and you'll be able to come in either via an Android phone or off your own laptop computers. And Everett's been trying to help me last night, spent a couple of hours working with me to be able to try and get that particular system on the Android phones working. So we'll continue on that today and let participants know afterwards as to whether they can get on and how long it will take to be able to do that. Now, we talked about voice tracking. That was the thing that was in the title. So therefore, the voice track simply equals the announcer's voice. Nothing more, nothing less. To be able to record it, to be able to edit if you like, to be able to put it into the system, it is simply the announcer's voice. It was used way back. I've mentioned this a couple of times in some of the previous ones. It's by no means new. Don't think it's something to be scared of or something to be frightened about. Used back in the 1970s by Bob Rogers at 2UE. He would record interviews and edit them while records were being played and put those back into his program later. It was used at 2SM by Ian McRae, who was doing breakfast then. He didn't want to start at 5. He automated the first full hour. Ronnie Sparks wanted to get away for a little bit of a social drink at the end of the day, and so therefore he would automate the end of it. In 1989, I went to America for a while, and over there worked with the American radio circuits, and they were using automation, playing the music at the stations, but the voice was coming up from the head office, which was in New York. And one announcer, to be able to cut costs, was doing the voice tracks for the whole lot. He would record one voice track for one station, exactly the same voice track for the next station, exactly the same for the next station, and playing 3 and 4 music tracks back to back to be able to cover the gaps. So it is nothing new, and we can use it for holiday periods quite easily and for normal daily routines. Now, if we took an hour, so we're looking at the old clock system, but here, of course, listed down music track after music track all the way through. So for your program, whether you be the program manager at the radio station or whether you be an individual working your own show, you've obviously turned around and programmed some music for each hour. So where does voice tracking come in? Simple. Once you've got your music in place, you work out where your voice tracks will be, either for your own show or for the radio station. You can move them. If you need 3, 4 tracks instead before you come back in again, you can always move this material. The computer becomes your panel operator. Again, don't be scared of it. It is for you a hand. It's a way of being able to present the material. Now, let's say in here, you've played 3 tracks, and then at the end of it, in here, you need to be able to give a back announcement off the track. So therefore, you're segueing into it. This will automatically make the audience think that you're in the studio listening to the same music they are. And you can also therefore announce back into the next track. So every one of these breaks can be worked that way. We take it one step further, and this is more for the program managers of the stations. In here, you've got your news service. Sorry, we take that back one, Pete. There we go. So now what you've got in here is you've now got your news, your weather information. These are things that can be rotated. So that like in some radio stations, they'll record the news service that's sent up for their broadcasts. So therefore, when it gets to this point, it will pick up the current news service. So therefore, it's always up to date and making it sound as though the radio station is together with its audience and with the marketplace. The weather can be recorded. This is often done by network stations. I know that on the mountains from here, they'll record the weather for the other station they own in the late afternoon and run that until very late in the evening. So the one weather forecast can be updated for all of the radio station programs. So you'd record one that would run through the night, run one that would go through your breakfast and morning sessions. There doesn't have to be anybody in the station, but at this stage, the weather will be therefore up to date on each one of these. The advantage in here is also with your sponsorships. They can be also incorporated into this kind of system. So if there are changes in the sponsorships, then obviously there's a very great advantage as to what will actually occur. Your PowerPoint is stuck on one of the screens there.
Oh, I'm actually going to do the presentation for you now. So,
okay,
Peter. So I'm on the page at the moment where there's the list of news, weather, music, and answer of voice.
Okay, track. Towards the next one for us, please.
No worries. There we go.
Now I'm looking at mine here though, so I'd better go back to taking this off the screen.
Yeah. If you just sort of look at your Zoom screen, you should be seeing it.
I've just got to get back into the Zoom screen. It should be. Got a few things open here, so I'm trying to work out exactly where I am.
Oh, I can just follow your lead if need be, mate. At the page at the moment where it says
okay,
volunteers need less time at the station.
All right, that's fine. So now I need to move that one across though. If I can see yours would be good. That would work out better for me though.
Okay, then do you want me to stop sharing and
no, I've got it. I'm back to the right one now.
Beautiful.
Okay, now here's an essential part about recording programs. If you record programs for holiday breaks or other reasons, it means that you're going to be spending a lot of your personal time in doing that. Maybe you're going to be away for, say, 3, maybe 4 weeks. You need to record that number of programs. And in each case, when you're in the studio, you're occupying time in that studio, which other people might be able to do. You're now starting to form sort of a roadblock, I suppose, in the process to be able to do that. Being able to record a program and multi-track is probably the better way to do that if you know how and if you can cope with that particular situation. So you use a program like Adobe or Audacity, place your music tracks in there, put your voice tracks in only. So you're only recording the voice tracks. You're not sitting down there listening to the music. A lot of people think that that's what they have to do. They have to be in the studio to enjoy the music and the whole of the programming system, the way it operates. You don't have to be there. You know that music. The people who are in the programming stage, they know that music as well. So you sitting there is really wasting a lot of time, both personally for you, where you could be out doing other things in work situations or leisure situations. It takes about 25% less time to either multi-track or to voice track for an automated radio program, giving you a heap of time, lots of opportunity to make changes too. The changes to tracks themselves can be re-recorded in automation, making the fact that they can be changed at any time before they go to air. Full programs can be moved or repeated at any time that you like. Next slide, Dan. So what we need to do is to be very careful in what we're doing. The reason I'm doing it this way is I've done the automation sessions before. And if you want to look those up, they are on the internet. And we did 2, which were basically on automation. And the other one was more on being able to get the thing to air during the pandemic periods. But what we're going to look at now is how do we make these things work for us? If you select the music, or if the team manager does select it for you, then you can always just add the voice tracks, the only thing that is required. You make it perfect if you can by using the back announcements, which I mentioned earlier, so that you have listened to the music track and you give the audience the full, firm feeling, the fact that you're in there and you're enjoying it as much as they are. If you can back announce to segue into a live promo, if you wish, as well, because normally in radio, the old rules were simply that you would back announce something, tell them what radio station you're with, and then after that, you would do something that's important. A story maybe about the artist you played, some information about the ones that are coming up. It could be the weather information, news info, traffic information. So all of those things, if you can hook them into what is happening now, it is very important. So say somebody has a wedding, maybe there's a gig that's been cancelled. Any one of those things you can incorporate into the programs gives it a today feel rather than the recorded time field to be able to work forward. So if that information gets changed with the automation, the only thing we are changing is the voice track. Everything else stays in place. All the music you've selected, your sweepers, your introductions. This is a huge advantage to be able to make your program up to date, even throughout a holiday period. Now, if we're looking at sponsorships, it's also a major advantage to you. This came up many times for us in community radio or in small radio stations, is being able to handle advertising for people who have instant turnovers. Most of the larger stations close down, the commercial networks close down for these periods. So for them to be able to put an advert in a system where the program is coming from, say, Maroochydore or from Brisbane, is exceptionally difficult for them. It is not as hard for community radio to do that, particularly if you're using an automation program where the adverts can be picked up as they go to air at the right time. So let's say you have a butcher or a fruit store. They've got new stock in, it's in their store, they can't move it. So they come to you with an exceptionally good price to be able to move that. So you can now change those adverts almost instantly for them, either as part of the voice tracking or part of the commercial packages. It is a huge advantage to be able to work that. We know we can only use sponsorships, so therefore it must still fit into the category of all the rules and regulations being right about the product, but also the fact that you can turn around and change it so quickly and tag it correctly is an absolute wonder for a lot of these people then come back to you. It will build your marketplace to be able to work for you. Now, timing for the hour, this is what we were talking about before we started this. It's becoming more and more difficult with radio programs now for timing. Many people don't really schedule themselves that tightly 2 times. If they want things like news services, they'll often use the internet. If they want a specific music track, they'll use the internet as well. So it's taking away from our marketplace in those areas. So what we want to do is to make the program flow. That takes a lot of effort. I've seen it done at Cairns FM, where I know that Peter goes back and does a lot of timing in between segments to make sure it works out the right way. To be able to run 1 to 2 minutes each side of the hour, I've never found been a major problem. The start of a program, a news or a sports item that people would expect to be at the hour, it's a case of being able to catch up with the information. Radio these days is not the delivered part of big sentences, like be going into a meeting and working with them. It's now become picking up information. So if you give them a time, radio station, your name, and what you're talking about in point form, most people will go away and they will remember your program. Danny, next. Now, there is care to be exercised in many of these areas. So if you want these programs to go to air and really sound as though they are live and workable, there's many things that you have to do. Now, one of the prime thing is do not tell people, I will be away, I will be holidaying on the Gold Coast. The reason is that there have been many burglars and different situations that have occurred over holiday periods, and I've been very close to that situation in the past. By putting it on the air, you're advertising the fact that some area may be unguarded and available to do. Weather. It's very difficult now with streaming because people now, let's say they're listening to maybe the French program or the Filipino program on your radio station. The weather information that they get over there could be delayed, could be streamed. The situation doesn't really relate to their part of the world. So although you must incorporate as much as you need for your local market, don't stretch it. Don't make it too big. Don't get it too dated. It can be that way if you record the program and you say, it's a wonderful day today, you would probably have to add to that, I'm recording the show. And that's what the conditions are at the moment. If the station is streaming, remember that all of the local information, say there's a traffic accident, the police call you to put that to air, that piece of information may not be relevant to, say, Germany, and you're streaming. You now have an international audience all the time with what you're working. Embargoed music. Now, I've been caught a couple of times on this one. Record companies now in particular are saying, we'll give you this early, but do not play it until a certain date. So when you're recording programs and when you're doing automation, in each case, be very careful about the dates on the material that you are being given. And that also applies to things like your advertising and product being available. Quality being consistent. It must be consistent to attract and become friends. The radio industry has really got a reputation for building you as being a friend in their household. When you go away, the station has to rebuild that marketplace for you. So when programs go missing, perhaps over the holiday period, it's often an opportunity for somebody to try another program and another time on your radio station, or perhaps to go elsewhere. So be very careful in what you're doing that way. Make sure that if you're doing a best of, it could be leading into what you're going to be doing next year. And you can always tell them that you'll be able to make changes in next year's program. But it can also be a way of reaffirming the good moments, the really spectacular moments that you had over the 12 months and using that during the holiday break. Danny? Now, here's one thing that I did push in the last one that I did, the last exercise that I went through. Listeners see absolutely nothing. It's what they hear. You can have a hiss of a snake, could actually be a tire going down, a very similar sound to it. Their mind are creating things. And this is a huge advantage for radio. We don't have to turn around and have monumental casts of people, big orchestras. We do it all by sound. How we create that sound is any way that we like, whether it be a pre-recorded voice track, a sound effect, a news service, a scene set in a movie, a part of an old radio serial. Every one of those things is you playing a sound which will create an image for the audience themselves. And this is the important thing to think. Do not think that you're in a meeting, that they're sitting there with you. They're listening to you all the time, and you have the opportunity of being able to take them where you want them to go by using the sounds that you've created either through automation or through recorded product. But that's the first half. How are you going, Warren? Have you got something that you want to do at this point?
No, that's fantastic, Peter. That's absolutely wonderful what you're saying.
I've got the summarizing bits that were out of the ones I did before. If anybody wants to go to those ones, they're following this one here. So this is where we're looking at programs and selections for automation. The lower priced versions that are available can be customized or played with. There are ones that I don't know whether Evan's on the line, that we're using Zara, which is a free program in its basic format. And that one we're using to be able to fix a problem at Port Douglas with a second radio station required there. The dearer ones, they can be thousands and thousands of dollars, and in portions. The music programming ones, the ones to do traffic areas, and these are astronomical prices. So it's up to you as to what your budget can handle, and in most cases work together to be able to make those things work, because each one of them usually has a player, in other words, like your iPod, and has a way of creating it, making the lists. And many of those lists can also be made simply with Microsoft music players. The software, therefore, varies substantially. It's very, very difficult. Warren and I were talking about this earlier, about being able to find a package that suits your budget and is consistent across all of the industry. Next slide, please, Danny. This is basically what we covered here a bit earlier, the basic command areas. Now, a way of being able to cut your costs back and being able to put in adverts at times was actually suggested by Ross, who is the guy who gave us the software. He suggests that if you have sponsorship packages of maybe $20, $10, $5, make up one spot in the rotation that contains the $20, one that contains the $10 ones. Make them all consistent lengths. So therefore, that one rotated spot in an automated service or in a service providing the adverts to a radio station can be rotated very, very easily. If somebody buys 2 packages or twice the amount, merely put in double the number of adverts. And the rotations you can number. There are programs like Bulk Rename, which are free of charge, and you can use those to do the numbering system for you to be able to fit those properly. Community service spots, there are lots of wonderful ones. And I just seem to love the ones about the suicide ones that come out of the CBAA, and they get changed every single month. So therefore you now have a really good turnover of material to put in there. Take the tops and tails off them, and it sounds like your announcer. So that if you're doing a pre-recorded program or an automated program, you now have an announcer on there on a regular basis throughout the entire presentation you've got. Okay, Danny. Yeah, just hit the next one for us. This is traffic. Now, traffic is a thing that goes through a whole series of hurdles. In radio stations, we find it difficult to get people who like putting the automation together, the ones producing and editing segments that might be wrong, the ones who have to put the adverts in at the right particular point. There's always been the two areas of radio. One is the program presenter, the person who knows his music, and also all the people that he wants to talk to and interview. And then there's the radio station wanting to get a number of sweepers per hour to air and all of the adverts to air. And they've got contracts sitting on that and hopeful that the people in the radio studio will be able to follow what they want. Doesn't always happen. So traffic is always a nuisance to the presenters, but a necessity for the radio station to be able to work. It's always difficult to be able to do that, but it is necessary for the on-air presenters to appreciate that's where the money comes from, that's where the image comes from to be able to promote your radio station. Danny? This is basically, as I said, I've covered most of this now in the earlier stuff. These were out of a previous one, and both of these are also up on the internet, so the people who missed those can go back on those. They're up on YouTube. They're from the CBAA and from Technorama being the other one too. There's an interesting thing. If you start to work on adverts, the major stations play the best advert first and last, so that people are interested in it, and the last one keeps their interest before they go back into program. So these are the sorts of things within traffic that you need to look at if you're going to be able to get the best possible push for product and for the station. Next one, please, Danny. The higher price systems, now these are the ones where you'll find the money is huge to be able to buy these, and they're usually an upgraded thing. There are some major ones that are used by major networks. In that, they will turn around and give you things like a traffic program, which will incorporate your accounts. So at the end of the day, it will turn around and produce the accounts information that is required to be able to cover your accounting and business preparation. The local announcers are the ones who have to try and make sure that these segments occur. That is very difficult. Automation in many cases has helped in these areas, particularly in pre-recorded programs. Okay, next one, Danny. Sending from home. Now, if you pre-record programs, and this I'm hopeful that other people will take into account, you can record at home, and there's a very good one that I think Jason did, Jason Villy, and it covered recording at home. It's an excellent product. Those can be sent through via Dropbox to the radio station, which is free for low volume transactions or work, and therefore it can then be placed into the system. That can be done by using something like TeamViewer to be able to move it in from home for yourself. Remote access to the computers therefore allows you to make those changes with material you have produced at home. If you don't have a program like the one that I've been using to be able to insert material, you can therefore do it by transferring it through Dropbox, then using TeamViewer to insert it correctly. Next one, Dan. We should be just about there. We are. Okay, so that's about the bits and pieces that I can tell you. So now, Wazza, what have you got for us?
Wazza, I'll bring up your presentation for you if you'd like. Now, are you able to turn your camera on, my good friend? That's Warren who I'm talking to right now. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you, yep.
Excellent. And is your camera working okay, my friend?
No, because you need to do something there.
Ah, right, yes, because I turned you off because I was just sick of looking at you, mate.
Ah,
That's a bit mean of me, really, isn't it? I don't know, sort of, where do I get off with this sort of thing?
Typical Danny, though, isn't it?
Okay. Now I've asked you to start your video. Hopefully that should work. There we are. And I'll just get you to your first slide and you can instruct me as we move on through, if that's all right.
Thanks, mate. Hi, everybody. Warren Barnett from Highland FM 107.1. Firstly, Peter, thank you so much. That was incredible information, and it might take another couple of plays through the CBAA website to actually grasp hold of that. It was incredible information, and certainly in preparation, a great advantage to have taken all that on board. So thanks, Peter. Yeah. Now, just put the next one up, Danny, please. I think I'm going along the lines of. We had a multiple problem at the station Christmas of last year. This is before management changed and a whole lot of things changed. But we had 7 people come in to pre-record programs for Christmas Day. And that was fine. I asked them, please send them to me, and I'll put them up into the slot. However, they didn't edit them. There was 6 to 7 minute second gaps between vocals and whatever, and their songs and so forth. And it was a bit of a nightmare. It took me about 2 hours, roughly 2.5 hours, to edit each program. And this is like 12, 14 hours before the programs were to go to air. So that's a complete no-way. That's where Peter's preparation that he's already discussed with you comes into play. And I think everybody needs to consider their program content. I think it's incredibly important. It depends on with Highland FM, the people who normally do their shows. are doing them this year. So we don't have any pre-recorded content going to air on Christmas Day. And we've got enough live presenters to actually do their own programs, which is not always the case. It is in our case, but certainly not always the case in other stations. So so when you're preparing your program, you really need to consider what you're going to put in there. Next one, Danny. You need to prepare your program well ahead of your air date. And that's by, I think, not leaving it till the last minute. Oh, what am I going to do now? I'll just put this and that'll do. No, well, that's bad radio, and it's unprofessional. And one of my main things that I've been doing since the CBAA dared suggest that I be part of their system. Thank you, Danny. Is to try and get stations to take a much more professional approach to their broadcasting in every aspect of it, right from music right through to content, program content. And part of that in preparation for pre-recording is to prepare your program well ahead of your air date. Next one, Danny, please. And take the time to produce a quality program. I've just touched on that, haven't I? But you need to, don't come in 48 hours before and think, oh, this will be all okay. 90% of the time, that's not the case. And so you need, if you're going to produce a quality program, pre-record, you try to do it on air, then do it with your pre-records as well, so that the listener is engaged with what you're trying to say with your program, and will stay on and will stay with you for the length of the program. Next one, Danny. Software. Now, Peter has already touched on software, and yes, there are various free software packages available for you to do that. And Peter has covered that. At Highland FM, we are using Audacity, and as our recording software. I have my own studio in Mossvale, so I'm a little bit I've got a little bit of high-end gear because I work for a major record company. But in saying that, they're pretty much essentially the same. And Audacity is quite good in preparing that. So when you're selecting your programming software or your recording software, just be a little careful as to what you use. There are some. What I've seen, one is LP Recorder, which I don't specifically like. Certainly professional radio recording, but Audacity is a free program, and it's quite adequate, and it's got all the things that you would need to do. It'll save your files where you want them, how you want them, and whatever, but editing is your most important aspect of that. And when you're inserting, those of you who don't have automation, we have automation through Zara 3. We're using Zara 3.1 at Highland FM. But I know many stations don't have that, have the automation software. So have a look at your free automation software, and probably Audacity is a good one to think about. Thanks, Danny. Scripting your voice content, yeah. Peter would agree on that, I'm sure. Because being able to pre-record gives you so many advantages, guys. It really does, to produce your voice content. I've just spent the last 48 hours preparing all the brand new summer IDs and promos and whatever for Highland FM. And it's very, very essential, particularly pre-recording your vocal tracks for your pre-recorded program, that you produce good voice content. Next one, Danny. And try not and I know this from experience through Highland FM in the past anyway. People try and ad-lib. They go into the studio, no script, no anything. They've got no idea what they want to talk about. And so it's all ad-lib, and it sounds ad-lib. If you've got a script in front of you, and you've created your content, then you've got a much better chance of producing a very tight and good sounding program. Next one, Danny. Yeah, I've got happy voice, happy voice here, and that's probably because that's the way I am. But it doesn't have to always be the case. But it's make your voice so that the audience, turn on and will listen and say, "Oh, that sounds great, doesn't it? Wow, yeah." And I think that's very, very important to produce have your voice quality is absolutely important with that. Next one, Danny. Quality above quantity. In fact, I mentioned this during the recent CBAA conference seminars that I was involved in, and it relates back to what I previously said about coming in. Don't come in 24 hours before or 48 hours before your program is supposed to go to air, and gee, I've only got 48 hours and somebody else wants the studio and whatever. Do it well ahead of time and don't rush your voice tracks, because quality is above quantity. It really is. And you've got the quality of your program far outweighs the quantity of your program, in my opinion. And that makes just for a really, really good, tight radio program. And of course, your key is your microphone. In fact, Peter and I talked about this yesterday to a degree. It really is if you're recording at the studio, I'm sure you have very good quality microphone. If you're not recording at your own studio and recording perhaps at home, be very, very careful of the microphone that you choose, because that will be the key as to how it's going to come across on air. It's if possible, record at a place that's got a decent microphone facilities, or at least in your production studio. And I'm sure most radio studios would have good microphones there. Next one, Danny. Yeah, watch your voice, watch your record levels, and avoid over modulation. Now, modulation is the level of your when you watch your meters. Over modulating is going into the red, and with digital, you've got to be very careful with that, because it doesn't take long to get digital distortion. And as opposed to analog, at least analog's got a little bit of headroom in it, but with digital recording, you've got to make sure that you don't over-modulate, that you don't take your levels above what they should be, and you end up with distortion. So it's better to record a little under the 0 mark rather than go over it and into the red. And that's what's meant by modulating. And if you avoid that, if you keep the same voice, try and keep the same voice level when you're recording as well, you'll have a consistent level throughout your entire recording for your program. Next one, Danny. And so, yes, we laugh because it sounds funny, but it has been done. And you go and record, or you spend all day or whatever it is, few hours recording all your voice tracks. Suddenly, where are they? Oh, I forgot to save them. Oh no, well, now what do I do? You've got to go back and re-record it, haven't you? So remember to save your voice tracks. It's essential you do that, and it'll cause you much grief if you don't. And I'm afraid, having worked in the recording industry, in the recording studio industry now nearly 52 years, I can tell you that it does happen, and it doesn't not only happen in radio, it happens in multi-track recording sessions as well. And we won't go there, will we, Peter?
No.
So that's very vital, guys, to do that. Editing. And the next one, Danny, please. Okay. When inserting your music tracks, edit off digital back. Yes. In fact, we came up with this problem, little thing, last week at Highland FM. It wasn't the fault of the presenter or anything like that. It's just the music tracks that you use either in your own playout system at the radio station, or if you're bringing in your own tracks on a USB, which quite often happens, and you put them into the system. And now I'm going to play blah, blah, blah by blah, blah, blah. dead air. Why? Because the file has got 2 to 3 seconds or 2 seconds or whatever blank at the start and the end. Don't start me on that one. I even have that problem with major record companies. And so you need to edit that off to make the track clean, so that when you say, and now blah, 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 bang, the track comes straight in, and at the end as well. With Zara, we are able to put pre-fades onto the end of each song. I certainly do that. And not a lot of listeners, or sorry, a lot of presenters do that, but you can do that with Zara. But the main point is, when you're selecting your music, if you're downloading your music, if you're buying your music, Spotify, whatever it is you use for your music, you've got to be very, very careful that you make the tracks clean. I think Peter touched on that previously as well. So that's a thing to watch out for. Next, Danny. Yeah, now deep breathing your talk breaks when you're pre-recording, can't do it. If you do it, if you're doing it live, you'll die. But if you doing your voice, and I was, it took me a while to work that out. And you can do that in your editing system. And rather than have all the time in the middle of your breaks, of your talk breaks, you can deep breath them, and you still make them sound. It takes a little longer, but it really makes a really good break to talk break to be able to do that. You might have to do that. I'm not saying to do that in every single 2 seconds or whatever, but if you have a long, if you're back announcing, and there's the good thing about pre-record is you can go back over and re-record if you need to. Okay, and but that's just something maybe just to look out for. Next, Danny. Yes, we've been through this, of course, already in the previous slide. And don't over-modulate your voice, your music tracks. Your music tracks should be standard anyway. You shouldn't have to play with them. They should be all fine. Should be set at standard level. However, if you need to alter the volume of your voice tracks, make sure, as with your voice tracks, that you don't over-modulate them, that you take them into an area where they don't need to be, and you end up with distortion. In many of the 60s tracks and early 70s tracks, particularly from Australia anyway, a lot of them are sounding distorted anyway from the original way they were recorded way back then. We didn't have the equipment back then and whatever. So just be very careful with your music tracks and make them the same as your voice tracks.
All right, we've come to the end of those slides now. Peter, did you wish to show anything from the station playlist stuff? Did you wish to take
bring that up if you
control?
like? Yes.
Okay, then I will let you do that. And while you're bringing that up, I'm just going to go through some questions and things that people have been putting forward here. Denise, when you were there talking before about having the happy voice, Warren, Denise Kuchmar's tip is smile when you're talking to facilitate that. And that will sort of, that will assist in making sure that your voice is happy. Peter Ricketts says, you mentioned music from Spotify. I am of the belief that we are not licensed to broadcast music from Spotify. Peter Ricketts, you are absolutely correct. For more further clarification on that, I'd suggest having a look at the APRA AMCOS documentation about sourcing your music legally. That's also on the CBAA website. I can send a link to that, but no, please don't use music from Spotify or YouTube. Rebecca asks, does debriefing have to be done one by one? Is there a way to do a file all at once? I would suggest I don't think there is anything that would sort of do.
There is.
There would probably be something. But with the debriefing, would it be sort of the rule that would be only sort of go through and do it where it's very obvious, where you sort of taking in a big breath?
One of the things that in production work, when you're doing adverts and material like that, you're using compressors to be able to bring levels up. At the moment you do that, anything that's on the floor level of it comes up as well. So consequently, if you're compressing a piece of voice work, that floor level comes up, hiss and other sorts of noises. So when you're trying to mix that against a piece of music, you're fighting the two together. So it's always best to get rid of those pieces in between each one of the sentences or blocks of voice if you can. But there are two simple ways of being able to do a basic job of it. One is Audacity. Audacity has something that works rather like the delay systems for commercial stations, where it finds the gaps and drops the level on those gaps all the way through. And it's highly efficient. The other one, it's in the drop-down menu on Audacity, actually.
Which one is it in? Is it an effect?
Try effects. You've also got to have the effects loaded is the other thing you'll find.
Okay.
Some of these are not immediately produced or set with it.
And sorry, what was the effect that you were referring to? What's it called?
You're on it, just about truncate silence.
Truncate silence. Oh, okay, great. Oh, yes, and so that'll go through and get the bits of silence.
Take those bricks out. Now, there's also another one there which is actually drops the level of it rather than truncating it. The truncating is a good way of being able to shorten an advert without changing the pitch or the sound of it in any way. I've been playing a bit with it lately because I didn't know it was there, but I'm now using this to try and get rid of those effects. It's far simpler than the others. Adobe has all of this in there. It's very, very complicated trying to get to it and make it work for you. This is really the simplest way of doing a lot of very basic editing and noise reduction factors.
Okay. No worries. I might see if I can dig up a bit of audio that has a few breaths in it and deal with that. But sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
You know, that's right. With your breath thing, usually you'll find when people are recording adverts or anything like that, they tend to take a breath in, and the very first breath or the very first part of that breath they're using, they're very enthusiastic and very loud. So that even if you're trying to edit bits together, that loudness always occurs at the start of each of those. What I was always taught to do was to do a little thing like you're listening to 4CA or something, and then do it. So you've already let that breath out at that stage, and it sounds more natural for the remainder of the read, and it's far easier to edit those things together. Also, if you are editing, make sure you repeat the last phrase just before where the edit is. So you've already got the feel correct as you're going into the next section of it. Now, what I was going to show, can everybody still see my image? Have you left that up, Danny, or is it just on my screen? Okay, this small device that I have in my hand is worth about $70, $80 in retail stores like JCar. It is very pop prone, so if you use it from the side of your mouth rather than directly in front of it, it works fine. It is a USB microphone. It's nearly as good as, say, the Audio Technicas that I had at the other station. And it also has an outlet for your headphones. So with this and Audacity, you can do multi-track recordings and reproduce the music underneath as you're recording. And you can also use it for radio programs. There's a lot like this. This is the one that I bought when I went to one of the conferences so I could do the programs from there. But these are the sorts of things that make it very economical for you to produce a good program from home. That happy thing too, one of the things I sort of told somebody I was speaking to yesterday, but the happy stage, I had an announcer who I said, always sound happy with whatever you're reading, sound great on radio. So this goes back to Tamworth. So they read the funeral announcement as though they were happy. And right after that, they played, I think it was something like Burning Down a Hole or something, or a Johnny Cash song that was about fire and demolition straight after that as well, just to add to that situation. So there has to be a little bit of moderation in those areas. Yes, Peter, I agree. That's great. And Peter's got another program too. He's been using DB something, or DB Power Amp, I think it is. And you're talking about the starts and finishes of music tracks. It actually edits those out, and it also keeps the levels reasonably consistent. So it does leave maybe half second or more than probably I would do manually, but that's also available as a way of being able to do the whole library in one hit.
Yes, and just when you were talking about that before, Warren, about the being able to have that sort of mix between the song and the other, that's in the settings of Zara, isn't it? And you can sort of set it to the crossover between one audio
Yes, you
file
can.
to the
Yes, you
next.
can preset the crossovers in Zara, correct, yes. Yep.
And it's obviously not going
It's
to
in one
be,
of the drop-down menus there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be sort of, that's something where you sort of need to play it a bit by ear, because it's obviously not going to be consistent between
No.
all of those. That's
Yes, and you can
interesting.
override the Zara settings too, Danny. Zara's been a huge learning curve for me, particularly, and for our tech staff, and for the presenters for that matter, because none of them had ever seen Zara before. Once you get the hang of it and get your head around Zara, it's a fabulous program.
It is indeed, and it's easily available. I believe there's a free version there available as well. I don't know
Yes,
sort of if you're able to do. Are you able to do sort of?
We were using the free version for quite a few years, Danny, and we made the decision that we probably needed to purchase some radio automation software, and so we looked at a few. We looked at Jazzler. We looked at quite a few actually, and we decided to for cost. For cost purposes, Zara certainly wasn't as expensive as some of the others, and so we chose Zara 3. I think it's 3.1 now, and it comes from Spain as well. And we've now got you can purchase. If you purchase more than one license for Zara, say 2 or 3 or whatever, the price drops considerably, and it's in euros. But we had no problems with it at all, and we've got a direct contact with the technical people in Spain. If we've got any issues with Zara, we can do that. The manual is quite extensive, and of course you get that with it as well. So that's online, and we've got that as well. So yeah.
What I've got up here on the screen is the one that I used to use at Smithfield, which is the automation system. So in here, I'm doing the same as Peter's doing for CAN2M. The radio news is recorded separately. It comes in as a feed. Then the jingle for the weather. This is where I said the weather can be changed in one block, and it will therefore go through every single program that's there. But the voice tracking in this one, every system's different. So therefore you have to remember that this one has a lot of advantages that some of the other cheaper ones doesn't have. So let's say we wanted to back announce Justin Bieber. So in there, we would then just record the voice track. So now it brings up the music tracks and brings up the recorder. So in here, then you can record that section and just drop it straight back into it. So if we just...
Peter, your screen's not actually showing at the moment. If you select your share screen button and get
so now I've got to find that one again.
there should be a green button at the bottom of your tool.
Yeah, no, I've only got my taskbar there at the moment. So if I minimize that one, maybe I can find it then.
Sorry about this, mate.
No, that's all right. You still can't find it on that screen. I found it before, but I'm not too sure it's gone now. So maybe in this one here. So if I maximize this one.
So if you hit the share screen button, it will bring up a list of windows that are there and open on your screen.
Yeah, the share screen button is the thing I can't find on the bottom of the screen. So I've obviously got a different screen up here at the moment from... here we go. Got him.
Beauty.
Okay, so now... Let's hope it's this screen here then to share. Yes, it is. Okay, so let me drop out of that.
There we are. That's bringing it up now. Thank you.
Yep. Well, this is the screen which is your program that you'll be running. And so consequently, you schedule in the things that here, they're the things that can change frequently. And this is where I talked about it being an advert, perhaps. The adverts can be in here. It'll pick up the next one that's required. You can have several of them in each one of these breaks by working on the timing factors. But what I was showing you here is the voice tracking, how easy it is with this particular program. It's also very easy with some of the other dearer ones as well. So in here, you simply select voice track to record. It shows you the tracks that you're running with at the moment. but also on this screen is your recording one. So in here, you can do a simply start recording and stop it, and so you wind up with the segment, or you can play the out section of the track you want to back announce, so you've got the feel of the song, and you can do the same with the incoming over the ramp of the song itself. So once you've done that and you save it, then it drops straight back into here for you. Now, if you wanted that track to go over the next one, you can go out through here into the track editor, load into track tool. And in track tool, we can then put a start time on it. So an intro duration of, let's say, 0.5 of a second is roughly. Set that. So now what will happen is the voice track will run. And because of this, it will, where the voice track finishes is where the vocals on that track would start, because you set this time up. It's that easy. Now, if you think about you going on holidays or the radio station having this produced by your music program or music sequencing devices, so therefore you've got a continual turnover of songs within the rules and regulations that you've given it, you can go a month, 2 months ahead and be able to make these tracks, and you can still change them before those dates to be able to work through those periods. So you now have this continually up-to-date functionality within the program itself, and being able to record anything you want anywhere that you want to be able to work with it. So that might give you a better idea of what I've been talking about.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that. And with the station playlist stuff, as part of the follow-up correspondence that we'll be able to send to all of our registrants today, I'm able to include a bit of stuff in there with that, I believe, Peter.
Yeah, what we're going to try and do, there is a remote module for this particular program, which does bring up the actual sequencing one. This one here, it would bring up this screen for you. We are able to find, we've got the software that will allow you to go in from externally to be able to make changes within this. And once we get it running, I can give out to 5 people at a time. In other words, 5 people from different locations can be all using this at once, to be able to move music tracks around, to be able to put sweepers in, to be able to play with it. You won't be able to play the output, but you'll be able to see exactly what you can do with the program itself to be able to make those kind of changes. Now, it's also got a version for Android phones, which I haven't used, but I'm experimenting with at the moment. Once we get this done, anybody who is either part of this webinar or who is told about it, we can give you a trial of it, and that he's given me a license through to the end of December.
Okay, then. I don't know, I guess probably the best way to do that is maybe to get people to contact you directly, Peter. So as part of the follow-up, with your permission, I will include your email and let people know sort of, obviously, if it's possible, we might sort of do it a triage basis. Anyone who's here today who doesn't sort of have this functionality there at their station through the existing station playlist or any other sort of function, if you've got nothing there, maybe you should get first bite of the cherry on that one.
Yep, that'd be fine. Well, as I said, Zara is another one that Woz has been saying that people can start with that one. It's a little bit more clunky, because where you want to make the changeovers for the hours, you have to make sure that that is your next program. So where the music is stacked in those, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. But once you get used to that, it's fairly easy to operate. Any more questions, do we know? Or?
I think Danny's gone for coffee.
It looks like it.
No, well, I was actually talking and I realised I was on mute.
No.
Now, sorry, I was just sort of checking to see any other questions there. There was someone asked whether you're aware of any plug-in effects there for doing the debriefing in Adobe Audition.
Adobe Audition, yes, it is. It's not as easy to find, but it's available for sure. Again, it's basically the noise gate. I used it yesterday. So with the noise gate, you set a level that it turns off. So therefore, it actually turns the audio off at that particular point. You tell it how far you would like that dropped. So you can take it part way down, so you've still got noise, leave it halfway up. It's easy enough to do. That is all part of the gating system in that area. Adobe actually has some very nice features which I've been trying to experiment with. There's a screen if you're going into workspace for radio. And in there, there's an audio chain which automatically compensates for the mid-ranges in your voice by using a multi-graphic type system or equalization type system. And it solves a lot of problems in the first hit with voices with people who might be difficult to work with.
Awesome. I'm just bringing up that Adobe Audition
Okay,
now, and I'll check to see if I can find.
Window view. Window, I think it is at the top. Yeah, workspace. Yep. And then down there, you'll see there's radio production. That's it. Now, if you've got an audio product, I'm not too sure. It's there we go, the effects rack. Now, at the top of that, you've got the drop-down box. You see the default here. Now, coming down, then the next window down, effects rack.
Oh, effects rack, right.
Yeah. And there's a drop-down box on next door to the presets.
Ah, yes.
And in there, you'll see there's a whole series like radio announcer voice down the bottom. So if you click on that, I think this is where I got it from. Yes, it is multiband processor. So on the left-hand side, if you double-click on multiband processor.
A multiband compressor or multiband processor?
Sorry, compressor. They use this in their mastering stages, but also here. So the low frequencies are compressed to one range, mid ones at a different range, next one's a different again. So if you get different people who are recording material, it gives them some similarity in those areas, regardless of the microphone they might be using or how they're using the microphone. So it takes some bumps out of it. It's not perfect because I found like the bottom end is a little heavy. But in most cases, this works fairly well and can be used as a guide for the material you've got. It's an area that I hadn't been into before. I'm only about a couple of months into actually giving this a use, but I found it's quite a good way of being able to solve multiple problems.
Excellent. Another question just coming in. Any tips on how to record interviews with a mobile phone, as in sort of software to download from Play Store? This is for an Android mobile, but I guess I'll ask if you're sort of aware of.
Go by a microphone.
Fair enough.
This is the cheapest one that this will be very hard for people to see. It's one of those ones that clips onto your shirt or whatever. There. So it's literally a small microphone, and the other end of it goes straight into your mobile phone.
But obviously you're going to have the not those new Apple phones with where you don't have a headphone jack anymore.
Yeah, well, you've got to buy the BIC to do that with, which is quite annoying. The other thing which I started playing with, and I don't know whether I can get it up quickly enough on the phone, I haven't been using a phone for lots of things in the past, but now I'm all of a sudden finding that I can work from home, I can record interviews, I can do lots of wonderful things now in all of these locations. So audio program is there. Now this particular version, and I'm hopeful it'll show on the screen correctly for us. Just got to get rid of that. Just use the free edition. This is a multi-track. Is that too blurry on the screen?
It's a little bit blurry, but what is that, GarageBand?
No, it's not. It's called N9. It's free of charge for the basic version. It is a multi-track recorder. It does have a fair amount of limiting and those sorts of functions in there, but it's a bit sloppy as far as doing fine work because of the size of the screen. You can export the files and bring them back under another program to be able to work them afterwards. I would have very little use for this. I'd use a Zoom H6 or something similar like that to be able to record a band or a couple of performers. But this is another opportunity that you can work with. It does have a major advantage in multi-track work. If you're doing interviews, and a lot of people don't bother doing this, if you've got, let's say, I'll get this up far enough. One of these units, no, it won't come out for me. One of the units that you can buy to record a guitar and your vocal. So the basic ones of those are about $150 to $200. So you can feed 2 microphones into there. you can feed a mic in and the output of your phone into the second channel. So therefore, you've now got left channel on your stereo is you, right channel is actually the person you're interviewing. So now you can EQ both of those, and you can slide the sections backwards and forwards in a program like Audacity or Adobe to be able to give it as a really live feel, because you can even move the breaths in where you want them to be, or the background noises where you'd like to do that, and take out bits and pieces. So you get a very, very clean edit. And then you can turn around and process it in a program where you can use EQs and all of the other fancy bits and pieces on top.
You can even do that in Zoom as well, if it's just the two of you. Set up one on the left and one on the right.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I'm going to need to pull up stumps. We've had some people sort of saying, thanks for a wonderful session. I've got to get on out of here. What I might do, if there is any further questions, I've just put my email address there into the instant message box. So if anyone's got any questions for our presenters, please feel free to send me an email and I will pass it on. And I will also take this time to thank both Peter Gill and Warren Barnett for today's presentation. Too much to cover in 1 hour, but with any luck, we'll be able to come back and deal with this again and again. Peter will make it for you active in radio for over 54 years when we bring you back in 2021, mate.
I hope so, but we'll see what happens.
Thank you to both of you for taking part. And this is wonderful to have you both here. Thank you to Michaela Ford and all of our colleagues there at the Community Media Training Organisation. Big thanks to all of my colleagues here at the Community Broadcasting Association of Australia who've made the 2020 webinar such a thrill to be a part of, and such a font of knowledge there. Certainly needed it here in this year of 2020, and mostly of all, big thanks to all of our attendees who register and attend these sessions. It's wonderful to be able to join with you here and better the community broadcasting sector. 2021 webinars will be a thing that happens. There'll be further information about those that will be sent to you via the CBAA Z News. And of course, we'll be linking up with the Community Media Training Organisation for a few of those next year as well. So we'll be letting you know all about them in due course. We were sort of thinking, oh, do we need to let people know now? But maybe you just need to give you a bit of a brains a rest from 2020. and
it is possible. It is possible to actually install a complete system like this by remote.
Oh, really?
Yes.
All right. Well, there we go. There's.
I could set up a radio station with reasonably good filing systems into a system like this within 3 hours.
You might regret me passing on your email address to all of our attendees. I'm still going to do it.
Okay.
But yeah, but for 2021, we'll be 54 years in radio and first year of regretting giving Danny your email address.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks very much, everyone. Wonderful to have you all here. I hope you have the most amazing festive season ever. We've obviously, today's only the first day of December, so there's still a lot of regular work to do between now and then. Please get in touch with us if you need anything. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Warren. Thanks, Michaela and the CMTO. Thanks, CBAA, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, Warren.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you at a webinar near you real soon. Bye now.